In the hushed glow of the first-class cabin aboard the redeye bound for New York, William Hayes stood frozen in the aisle, gripping a crumpled boarding pass in one hand and his daughter's trembling fingers in the other. He didn't look like he belonged there, and everyone knew it. William wore a faded charcoal jacket with worn elbows, jeans frayed at the hems, and boots that carried the stubborn dust of construction sites. Honest dirt that never quite washed out. His shoulders were broad, his posture disciplined, but exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. The last 3 years had aged him faster than time ever should. Beside him stood Emily, 7 years old, too quiet, too observant. Her purple backpack nearly swallowed her small frame, the straps tugging at her shoulders. Inside it, wrapped carefully in a clean T-shirt, was a wooden model airplane her father had built for her on her 6th birthday. She wore her best navy blue dress with tiny white flowers, the one she'd chosen herself because it made her feel like girls in the movies. Her hair was braided neatly, though one braid had already begun to unravel. Emily's lower lip quivered as she clutched her father's hand. Across from them, Flight Attendant Vanessa Cole stood stiffly, arms crossed, her professionally neutral smile sharpened into something colder. "Sir," Vanessa said, her voice calm but edged with authority, "you'll need to vacate this seat." The words landed like stones. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He only tightened his grip on Emily's hand. "These are our seats," he said quietly. Vanessa glanced down at the boarding passes again, as though willing them to change. Around them, first-class passengers pretended not to stare, some with studied indifference, others with thinly veiled irritation. A woman in a blue scarf exhaled sharply. "I thought first class was supposed to be quiet," she muttered, not quite under her breath. Emily pressed closer to her father. Vanessa inhaled. She'd had a long night already. Delays at San Francisco International had stacked up like dominoes under cold December rain. VIP notes, service expectations, 2 write-ups in 3 months. None entirely her fault, but all recorded just the same. She needed this flight to be smooth, controlled, predictable. And this man, these clothes, this hesitation, felt like a complication. "There appears to be a ticketing issue," Vanessa said, her tone firmer now. "Until we verify your placement, I'll need you to move to the rear cabin." She gestured toward the curtain separating first class from economy. Emily's voice came out small. "Daddy." William knelt instantly, lowering himself until his eyes were level with hers. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered. "We'll figure out." But his eyes told another story. They held the weight of every time someone had looked at his clothes and assumed the worst. Every time he'd been dismissed without question. Every time he'd swallowed pride because defending it cost more than he could afford, especially when his daughter was watching. He stood, gathered their bags, and prepared to walk. A phone lifted somewhere behind them. A smirk flickered, quickly hidden. Amanda Whitmore, the senior flight attendant with 22 years in the air, stepped out of galley just in time to see it all. William standing, Emily trembling, Vanessa rigid with certainty. "What's going on?" Amanda asked. Handling a seating issue, Vanessa replied quickly. "I've got it under control." Amanda narrowed her eyes. She'd seen real problems before. This wasn't one of them. This was something else. Something shaped by assumptions. But before she could intervene, before the right questions could be asked, William was already moving. 3 years earlier, he wouldn't have. 3 years earlier, William Hayes had been a senior aerospace engineer specializing in flight safety systems. He'd testified before the FAA, consulted on redundancy protocols. His name lived on patents that kept planes safe at 35,000 feet. He'd flown to Vienna, Singapore, conferences where his badge earned nods of respect. Then Sarah got sick. Insurance covered 60%. Hospitals demanded the rest. His flexible job demanded hours that clashed precisely with her worst days. Colleagues drifted away. The world revealed how fragile it really was. William walked away from his career without hesitation. He became a husband who stayed, a father who never left. After Sarah died, he became both parents at once, repairing HVAC systems, fixing cars, wiring security alarms, taking any job that ended before school pickup. They sold the house, moved into a small apartment. Emily's room barely fit her bed and bookshelf, but she never came home to an empty house. And when the letter arrived, New York, follow-up appointment unmovable, decisive, William made another choice. For the first time in his life, he bought first-class tickets, not for comfort, for dignity, for one night where Emily didn't have to fold herself small, where she could sleep before doctors began their tests. Now, as he walked past judging eyes toward the curtain, the envelope in his jacket pocket crinkled softly. Inside was a job offer from Northridge Aviation Safety, a chance at stability, a return to the world he'd left behind. The irony stung. In the cockpit, Captain Leonard Brooks studied two alerts on his display, minor discrepancies, but paired in a way that bothered him. As he scanned the updated passenger manifest, one name caught his eye: William Hayes, Flight Safety Engineer, Century 7 Systems. Brooks leaned back slowly. Sometimes the universe didn't whisper. It waited. He reached for the intercom. The intercom crackled to life just as William reached the curtain, dividing first class from the rest of the aircraft. "This is your captain speaking." The voice cut through the cabin with the kind of authority that made conversations die mid-breath and back straighten instinctively. "I need Mr. William Hayes to remain exactly where he is. This is a safety-related request." Silence fell. Vanessa Cole froze, her hand still hovering inches from the curtain. The woman in the blue scarf stiffened. The phone that had been quietly recording lowered at once. Every passenger in first class suddenly became acutely aware that something had gone very, very wrong. Emily pressed herself against her father's side. William closed his eyes for just a moment, not in triumph, not even relief, but in resignation. On some level, he'd known this might happen. He'd hoped it wouldn't. Captain Leonard Brooks emerged from the cockpit moments later. His uniform was immaculate, his silver-streaked hair neatly combed, his presence calm but commanding. He walked past the rows of first-class seats without so much as a glance, stopping directly in front of William. He extended his hand. "Mr. Hayes," Brooks said clearly, so the entire cabin could hear, "thank you for being on this flight." The shift was immediate. The blue-scarfed woman suddenly found her magazine fascinating. The man who had been filming slid his phone into his pocket. Murmurs rippled to the cabin like a wave hitting shore. Vanessa's face drained of color. Amanda Whitmore stepped forward, her voice low and precise. "Vanessa, my office," after landing. But Vanessa couldn't move. She was staring at William, at his boarding pass, at Emily's small fingers curled into his jacket, at the reality she constructed and the truth now shattering it. This was not a man who didn't belong. This was a man she had judged. William knelt again in front of Emily. "I need to help the captain for a few minutes," he said gently. "You stay right here, okay?" Emily nodded, eyes wide. "I'll stay with her," Amanda said immediately, steel threading her calm tone. William followed Captain Brooks toward the cockpit, where technical language replaced humiliation. Pressure readings, calibration drift, redundant sensor discrepancies. Within minutes, William identified the issue: a misaligned transducer causing false alerts between systems. Not dangerous, but costly in time if misdiagnosed. "You just saved us an hour on the ground," Brooks said quietly, "and a maintenance headache." William only nodded. When he returned 12 minutes later, the cabin had transformed. Passengers watched him with something between awe and shame. Emily sat safely in her seat, playing cards with Amanda. Her face lit up when she saw her father. Vanessa stepped into the aisle, and then she did something no one expected. She knelt, not halfway, not symbolically, fully, on the carpet, eyes level with Emily's. "I owe you an apology," Vanessa said, her voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake." William's jaw tightened. "Apologize to her," he said evenly. "She's the one you scared." Vanessa turned fully to Emily. Tears shone unchecked. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't belong," she said. "You do. You and your dad both do. I was wrong." Emily studied her for a long moment. "You won't make other kids scared?" she asked softly. Vanessa swallowed. Not ever again. Emily nodded once. Okay. Captain Brooks' voice came over the intercom again. We'll be pushing back shortly. And a reminder, on this aircraft, we treat each other with dignity. No exceptions. The flight itself passed quietly. Emily slept. William stayed awake, thinking. The video, however, did not. By the time they landed at JFK, the clip had gone viral. The narrative fractured into outrage, defense, and oversimplification. The airline's PR team waited at the gate with rehearsed smiles. My daughter has an appointment, William said simply. We'll talk later. They did. For days later, in a midtown conference room, William slid a single page across the table. He didn't ask for money. He demanded change. A written apology to Emily. Mandatory bias training. Protections for minors. And, most surprising of all, a condition that Vanessa Cole not be fired, but involved in building the solution. You want us to keep her? The vice president asked. I want her to learn, William said, and help others learn too. The airline agreed. 6 months later, Vanessa was leading training sessions. Emily's apology letter sat framed in their apartment. The airline launched the Hayes Family Travel Assistance Program. Life moved forward. On a later flight, economy this time, Emily looked up from her book and said, Dad, that lady learned something, didn't she? William smiled. Yes, she did. Emily nodded. Good. Grown-ups should keep learning. At 35,000 feet above a complicated world, that felt like enough